Hello, friends. Today we're going to talk about the different stages of the divorce process. Have you had the conversation recently with your spouse where he sits you down and tells you how much he loves you, but he's no longer in love with you? Or have you stumbled across cell phone records with phone numbers that you don't recognize, leading you to believe that something's not right at home? Or have you found receipts for the latest and fanciest restaurants, dinner for two, except you didn't go with your spouse, leading you to believe that he probably or she probably was dining with somebody else? Or did you venture upon their computer and see stuff on there that you didn't like, expect, or know? Bad, bad, bad. All of this leads to questions about divorce. Now, divorce usually doesn't happen overnight. It's usually a culmination of years of resentment or angst or not talking to each other about the issues. But however you got on this path, I'm going to talk to you a little bit of how to guide yourself. When it comes to divorces, there's usually two main documents that are filled out. One of them, usually called a marital settlement agreement or an agreement of equitable distribution, it divides all of your stuff, all of your assets, all of your liabilities, all of your money, all of that stuff. And the other document that's usually filled out is what's called a parenting plan. Parenting plan is a plan that deals with all of the issues regarding children. So for all of you lucky ones that either don't have a lot of stuff with your spouse and don't have a lot of kids or have any kids with your spouse, what ends up happening is that you get to go to court by filing a couple quick documents, and you'll probably get divorced within like a month or so because your marital settlement agreement won't have a lot of stuff. You will all keep your own assets and liabilities. You will all keep your own money, and then you'll be able to march off on your own merry way. For those of you that have kids, it's a little bit more complicated, and we'll get into that in a moment. So what's the process? Usually, one of you is going to file something in court called a divorce petition. And when it's a divorce petition, you're going to ask that the court divide all of your things usually equally. And some of these things will include your home that you're living in, a vacation home or a rental that you may have. It would include your retirement account, your spouse's retirement account if there's like a pension. It'll include any stock or accounts. It'll include any financial accounts. It'll also include crypto, which is a big thing nowadays, or it used to be before that one dude got in a lot of trouble recently and now is indicted. If there's a marital business, it'll include the marital business and things of that nature. In addition to that, if there's children involved, you will be asking that the court figure out a parenting plan for the children as well. If you're lucky enough to get along with your spouse, then the two of you will figure out a way to draft these agreements together and probably save a lot of money. If you're at ends or at odds with your spouse and you're arguing with them, then it can get a little bit more complicated. Or if you are a spouse who doesn't know anything about the finances of the marriage, like where it is that your husband is making his money or the type of business that he or she may run, if you have zero information about what is happening with the finances of the marriage, then it may take a little bit longer. So one spouse will file for divorce. The other spouse has about 20 days, or usually has about 20 days to respond and file what's called a counter petition. After that, you all exchange financial documents. Some cases are more complicated than others. Again, if you have very limited stuff together, it's not going to be a lot of finances. However, if there's a corporation and one spouse is the breadwinner, let's say the husband is the breadwinner and he has run the business all this time and the wife has stayed at home with the kids and the wife is unaware of what the finances are, then it will probably be a little bit more complicated to get the wife up to speed in terms of what stuff the parties have, how much a business is worth, and how much of it, if any, has a marital component. After you exchange financial disclosure, you may consider getting a forensic accountant. If there's issues with the kids, you may get a guardian ad litem. It all kind of depends on each case, because each case is a little bit different. You will then go to what's called mediation. In mediation, you and your attorney will show up and have a meeting with your spouse and their attorney and a mediator. Usually the mediator is someone who the parties can agree on. The mediator will sit there and try to figure out if you can work a deal as to any of the issues in your case, including, maybe the house will get sold, maybe one spouse will stay in the house, maybe they'll divide the retirement account in a certain way, maybe the kids will stay with one parent more than the other. So I would say the great majority of cases get resolved at mediation. Mediation is a process where everyone kind of plays the devil's advocate and tries to figure out what the best deal is. However, not all cases will end up and be resolved at mediation. So anything that is not resolved at mediation will go forward to a final hearing in front of a judge. Most jurisdictions, family court cases are not jury trials. Here in Florida, they are bench trials. And what ends up happening is that whatever is not resolved at mediation will go to court. And then I always tell people, try to resolve it at mediation, because this judge is going to give you about 4 to 8 hours of their time and do the best that they can with the information that they have. And it is a pretty scary prospect for me to have somebody who doesn't know you, has never met you, does not really know your circumstances except for that 4 to 8 hours that they will, listen to the best argument, divide your stuff for you. So I always push people, try to settle at mediation. But if you don't, you don't. You will go to court. The judge will make a decision, and they will divide your assets and liabilities accordingly after all the witnesses and all the testimony and all the information. And then you will eventually be divorced, which is much different for all of you lucky ones who don't have a lot of stuff, because you'll have an uncontested divorce and you'll probably be divorced in a couple months. Whereas the people who contest it, you can be in divorce court for a year, year and a half, 2 years. I've seen cases open for like 3-4 years. So try to avoid that. But in the end, that's the nature, or that's the process of divorce cases. If any of you have any questions, please make sure that you post them below. Also make sure that if you realize that each case is different, so we would be happy to help you. Please look us up at segarralawfirm.com. Subscribe to the channel, put any questions below, and share your video with any friends or colleagues that might be going through the divorce process, because we'd love to help them out. Once again, Manny Segarra from South Florida. Thank you.